Hi, and welcome to Unit 2. Unit 2 deals with standards, and standards, as I think probably all of you realize, standards are used to develop curriculum, standards drive our curriculum, standards shape our day-to-day activities, standards are used to set goals for our students, for student assessment, and for ourselves in terms of our own accountability. How well have we done helping our students achieve these standards and at what level? So we have standards at a national level and we have standards at the state level. And currently we have a new development in standards about which I'm extremely excited and perhaps even a little jealous because I'm getting towards the end of my career, and those of you who are getting in, many of you are getting in, and you'll be able to work with these for some time to come. And that is our fairly nationally wide adoption of what's called the Common Core standards. But before I get into Common Core, I want to just briefly touch a little bit on those standards which have been developed rather exclusively for school library media programs. We have had standards for a long time. And prior to 1988, the standards for school librarians and school libraries were very prescriptive. They dealt with square footage, number of books per student, perhaps even, well, not even perhaps, but they did deal with dollar amounts tied per pupil. Well, in 1988, standards were developed by the American Association of School Librarians, which falls under the umbrella of the American Library Association. And they developed standards called Information Power. Now the document, the book that I'm holding here in my hands, is the 1998 version of Information Power. But these standards took a step away from the prescriptive standards which talked about books, footage, square footage, and so on, and focused more on what it is that the school library media specialist does in his or her job, how that ties into student learning. And there really was a shift in development actually towards what I would like to say our current role of information literacy experts, those in the school who know how to access information, how to help teachers help their students to have access to information, evaluate information, utilize it, and use it to create new information and projects. And so in 1988, the Information Power Standards came out, and then in 1998, they were revised. They still actually had pretty much the same structure, and they really were moving, though, in the direction of emphasizing student learning. So in the year 2007, 2008, the American Association of School Librarians adopted the standards for the 21st century learner. And these are quite a different set of standards from the Information Power Standards, which, by the way, still have validity. Those Information Power Standards were good, and the basic fundamental premises of them have really not gone too far away. These standards, however, focus on the learner and not on the librarian, certainly not on the facility, I can tell you that. And as focusing on the learner, they have a lot to do with what kinds of skills the student learner should have when he or she is ready to move on from K-12 education, as well as what is known as the dispositions. What kind of attitudes should they take towards this learning? So these standards are actually rather difficult to use for assessment tools. I mean, there are some pretty good attempts made today to be able to assess students with them, but they are a lot more difficult, I'd say, to implement because there isn't just kind of a set of steps that a school librarian, a school library media specialist, teacher librarian would indeed follow. These standards, however, have been the basis for the standards for the adoption of state standards in the country. The Montana state standards are not totally based on this, but largely based on this. Montana state standards rely pretty heavily on Michael Eisenberg and Bob Berkowitz's The Big Six in terms of developing that information literacy component. So we do have our state standards, and now we have Common Core. And briefly, I just want to mention that Common Core, as I said, has been adopted. The Common Core standards have been adopted by all but a very small handful of states. So many of you, if you're not from Montana, are going to be from a state that has adopted Common Core. Now, Common Core standards do not require that we completely revamp our standards or our curricula. Remember again that standards are used to develop our curricula, so we do not have to revamp them. However, we have to figure out ways to infuse the Common Core and basically to raise the bar. I think the thing that I would like you to take away, which is part of the reason for my own real excitement, is that Common Core, rather than throwing something out, looks at content area and says, research is a part of all of these content areas. Literacy, digital literacy, media literacy, this is a part of all these content areas. And so as teacher librarians, since digital and media literacy and information literacy is what we do and do best, we certainly have a very key role in being able to help teachers get these Common Core standards into the curricula and to be able to use them. There is a quote here that I would like to read that is taken directly from Common Core. And it says this: "The need to conduct research and to produce and consume media is embedded into every aspect of today's curriculum. In like fashion, research and media skills and understandings are embedded throughout the standards rather than treated in a separate section." So when you go to Common Core, you won't find a little section that says library media, but you will find research embedded within them. And you're also going to find that another real exciting thing, I think, for those of us in this field is that there is a real challenge to students and teachers to students to raise the reading literacy level, to raise the mathematics literacy level. But what it means is that we can certainly encourage students, and we can help, because this is what we're quite good at doing, to reading more challenging kinds of materials. And in some cases, the classics. So if you go to the Common Core website and you look in the appendix, you're going to see that the sample texts that they have are much more difficult than what an awful lot of the literature that is currently being published for our students. It's much more difficult than what that level is. So we as teacher librarians, school library media specialists, I think we have a wonderful new role to play as schools adopt the Common Core. And so I think you're all very lucky to be able to be in at the ground floor on this. So I hope you find it exciting. Let's get started.